joining remotely. Just if you can pop yourselves on mute, I'll be here at the beginning, and Jennifer can keep an eye on things afterwards, just because I've got a class to get onto through this afternoon. But we're going to get underway looking at this afternoon the Which Plant Where project, which I know we've discussed about many a time over the previous years through, and had a look at some of the materials coming through. So initialise. So we've got Gwilym Griffiths across coming and telling us about where the project's at and the new tool that we can actually jump online and have a play with. So Gwilym's going to give a bit of background again about the project and take us through a demonstration of the tool with questions at the end. So thank you very much, Gwilym, for joining us this afternoon.
Great, thanks, Matt. Thanks for the introduction, and yeah, thanks for having me, everyone. Pleasure to be here and talk about which plant where. My name's Gwilym. I'm the current program manager for Which Plant Where. I'm not a scientist, I'm not a researcher, so I'm going to take you through the research, but if you've got any deep diving questions, some of them I may have to take on notice, but hopefully I can answer them all for you. So my background is horticulture, arboriculture and landscape design, so being a part of this project is very exciting. It has some really far-reaching applications for the industry, and we've had some really good feedback to date. So I'll introduce the program, what are the drivers for it, the research that powers it, and then I'll get into a live demonstration of the website itself, and feel free to yell out some species and we can test them and we can see what they where they're likely to perform. So Which Plant Where started as a collaboration between Macquarie University, Western Sydney University and Hort Innovation. Hort has funded the majority of the project, and New South Wales and DPE have contributed too. So it's been a big collaboration, and it's been 5 years of research to get to where we are. So it's been quite a journey. Okay, which can everyone? I've got this panel of participants in front of me. Can everyone can see the screen all right, can't they? I'm just checking. Yes. Okay, good. So what is Which Plant Where? Which Plant Where is a climate-ready plant selector tool to enable resilient urban landscapes. And so why do we need this? Well, our climate is changing, and it's pretty obvious that some species that have thrived in the past may not continue to do so. You may already be seeing some signs of some species that are impacted. What is climate change? I'm pretty sure you all understand what climate change is, but what it means for us is that globally our cities are heating up and rainfall patterns are shifting. We're experiencing longer and hotter and more frequent heat waves, and our urban areas are most at risk due to urban heat island effect. So the research and the findings of this project have really focused on urban areas and urban landscape species. This is a quick little video to sort of show you what temperatures are doing globally. This is some of you may have seen this, but it's a bit of a diagram in terms of heat patterns and points for guessing what's happening with heat. You'll see it become hotter as we get along. Australia's up the top there in the middle. I think you get the message there. So what does that look like at a more local scale, at an Australian, at a country level? Someone waiting to come in. So this is some of the data that's been recorded. Some of the data that's been fed into the project based on some. Sorry, there's some noise there. Could someone mute? Please. Margot, that's you. Margot, could you mute for us?
Trying hard. Hang on.
There we go. Okay. Sorry, everyone. So yeah, at a city level in Australia, this is what's predicted to happen to our temperatures over the three scenarios. So Which Plant Where has used three different climate scenarios: 2030, 2050, and 2070 to look at the modelling. And this is based on, see there, RCP 8.5 projections, which is worst case scenario projections. So this is the do nothing scenario. And this is the rainfall predictions over those same scenarios. So 2030, 2050, and 2070. Interestingly, you'll see that rainfall is actually going to increase in some cities. It's not just declining across the board. You can see Sydney there actually reduces in 2030, but then goes up in 2050 and 2070. So that's the sort of data that's been factored into this tool. So what's the impact on climate change on our urban green spaces? Well, heat is one of the biggest impacts and is going to affect a lot of species. This is some research that was done back during the heat wave of 2019 to 2020. That was when we had our horrific bushfire season of around 5,000 trees out in the Penrith area. Researchers actually went out there and started measuring leaf burn, temperature of leaves, and impact on trees. And you can see some of the results there that, you know, species like Magnolia grandiflora, Prunus cerifera, it's not a good word, have been very heavily impacted. They've been defoliated and, you know, unlikely to come back. A few species that do perform all right, but you can see, yeah, a lot of the deciduous species, the aces, Magnolia, Quercus, Pyrus, have not performed well. So why does all this matter? You know, urban green space, you know, you're all aware that, you know, urban green space and plants are essential to our livability in our cities, now more so than ever, primarily due to their cooling benefits. And climate ready species will be the key to ensure that our urban forests and urban green spaces are resilient to climate change. And worth noting there that the nursery industry in Australia is worth $2.6 billion annually. So there's a good reason to put some thought to how we're selecting our species. Okay, so how do we solve this problem? I've posed the issue, and this is the issue that Which Plant Where has put out to solve. So I'll take you through the research now in terms of what was done to gather the research. So there were 3 modules in total. Module 1 was a species attribute and climatic tolerances exercise. So this is where we collected a database of over 2,600 species, hybrids and cultivars. They were selected based on input from industry, from nurseries, from landscape architects. You know, we tried to select the most common amenity landscape plants out there that are used. And this process involved collating all their traits, you know, from heights, tolerances, soil traits, and climatic tolerances, and then mapping them against the climate scenarios that I showed you before, those graphs. So that was called the bioclimatic modelling, and it was undertaken for all the species that we collated, and it resulted in the development of these national level maps, indicating climate suitability for each species. So that's what these maps are here. So green indicating that it's suitable, and the lighter green to yellow indicates that suitability is declining. So every species has been mapped against that. Module 2 is the success and failures module. This was actually in the field. They were called living labs. There were 12 of them established across Australia, and this model assessed for success and failures in local conditions, accounting for variables such as planting techniques, management techniques, really looking at how they perform in the field. And they tested some different scenarios of planting to measure co-benefits. So you can see some of the scenarios there in terms of trees planted by themselves or trees planted with shrubs, with a different hierarchy of, sorry, excuse that noise, hierarchy of structure there in terms of different size of plants. And it was important during this process, they also collected an inventory, available inventories from councils. So there were 218 councils that provided information for this, and the aim of that was to look at most common species and performance of those species. Interestingly, yeah, 30% of the most common species make up over half the urban forests across Australia. So there's a real heavy reliance on a small handful of species. Sorry, I hope that noise isn't too loud. I hope you can still hear me. Species diversity is important. That was key, but also it was noted that there's not much record keeping from councils in terms of success and failures. If a tree is removed, it's very uncommon that it's recorded as to why it failed or what the issue was. So there's a bit of work to do there. And the more we learn about those failures, the more we can integrate that information into tools such as this. So module 3 was the really interesting. It was greenhouse testing, and 313 species were put through controlled conditions in greenhouses at Macquarie in Western Sydney. I call it the torture chamber for plants. It was where they actually simulated heat and drought scenarios. So they wouldn't water the trees for 2 weeks, and then they'd turn the heat up to 40 degrees and see what happened. And then they'd measure the plant stress indicators as a result of that. So some really interesting stuff came out of that. One of which was like the drought tolerance, and they categorized 2 different levels here of drought tolerance. One is a tolerator and one is an avoider. So a tolerator is one of the plants that has thicker, tougher, smaller leaves and control surface area, and good stomatal control. So plants like our eucalypts that can control their stomata, and the avoiders, such as the deciduous trees that will just drop leaves if they burn. So yeah, traits such as wilting point, leaf critical temperature, leaf thickness were measured as part of this process to determine the tolerances towards change. So we found that some species just will not survive over specific temperatures, and some species will require ongoing watering management to survive. Worth noting here that with ongoing watering or irrigation, that isn't considered as part of this. There's sort of a baseline assumption that it's in standard conditions. So obviously irrigating or intervention will affect performance of certain species. So that's all been fed into the tool. This is the tool now. So I'll take you to the website. I'll stop sharing. I'll go to the website. So hopefully you can all see that screen. I'm still sharing the same screen. Okay. So this is the website. This is the tool, has all been integrated into this online website, and a lot of information about the science that I've just been through here in much more detail, if you're interested in finding out. And then we've done a little video to help sort of demonstrate just very quickly the science behind it. So as part of the tool, we've also developed these resources to help industry not only understand the research behind what we've done, but provide some best practice guidance in terms of monitoring and maintenance, planting trees, measuring and maintaining urban forests. So I'll do some searching. I'll show you how the tool works and go through a few different species. I think there's a few of us located around the country today, but there's 2 different ways of searching. So you can search via location. You can type in your postcode or suburb, or you can search via species. So you can type in a botanical name. I'm going to start with my favorite species, Angophora costata, and hit search. So it brings up the species page. It gives you information on all the traits that I mentioned before, performance, tolerances. Angophora was one of the experiment species that was in the greenhouse. So this gives you a bit of information about that and how these tolerances were measured. So to find out location, you can type in your postcode here. I'm just going to do Sydney. And it tells you that species will be suitable for 2030, 2050 and 2070, which is great news because that's one of my favorite trees. And then that's represented here in the maps as well. So you can slide through to each of the maps, and it shows you distribution. So it does slightly decline as you go to 2070, but still suitable within that range. So down to Victoria slightly, and then you can also add this to a palette. So that's one of the other features I'll go through as well. So if you're a landscape designer or you want to be just collecting a list of this, you can add it to your palette, and it will store that on the side here. And as you go through, you can add as many species as you want. If you add up to 10 species, it'll do a co-benefits measurement for you. So here's some plants I've just had before.
Willem?
So I'll show you one of the.
Willem,
Yep.
I've got a couple of people saying they can't see beyond the first slide. They can't see the active pages. I can see them, but I
Oh,
don't know some other people.
Okay.
can't.
Let me stop sharing, and thank you for telling me that. Let me stop sharing and reshare. Sorry, everyone. It's not much use me talking about something you can't see. How's that? Can everybody see? Can everybody see that?
I can see it. So yes, I'm getting a yes there
Okay,
from
good.
Rachel. Yep. Thanks, Rachel. Helen, you were another one. Can you see? Yep. So yeah, it seems okay.
Okay, thank you. I'll keep going.
It's very large, someone said, but
I can't do much about that.
At least you can
see it. Good. Okay, so that's annoying. You wouldn't have been able to see what I was talking about. So I'll do another species search. Does someone want to yell out what species they want to find out suitability for? Anyone?
I saw a Agonis on the list.
Agonis?
Agonis
Yeah.
flexuosa.
Yep. Great. Yes, there's the straight species and then the cultivars listed as well. And you can see as you type it, it brings up suggestions for what you're typing in. So let's have a look at Agonis. Yeah. Okay, and we'll look in Sydney for that. So you type in the postcode, and interestingly, this one is suitable in 2030, but becomes marginal in 2050 and 2070, which could be something to do with the rainfall. So yeah, that is interesting. So it's one of those species that will be interesting to watch. Yeah. So this is what I was talking about before with the palettes. So you can add that to a palette as well. I'll go back to palettes and describe what I mean by them. So if you add to your palette, so this is this one I've created already. This is for a job we had in Westmead. So this is just a list of trees essentially, but I've added them all to a palette, and it will give you information on co-benefits relating to that selection that you've put in. So some of the co-benefits that we're producing are planting diversity. That's based on spread of genus and species, the carbon value, and because there's a majority tree species, carbon value is quite high, and so is shade value as well, and then biodiversity value as well. So that's quite useful, yeah, for if you've got a specific project you're working on and you want to build a plant list for that project. You can then export that as well. It exports it as an Excel spreadsheet to use how you wish. So I'll go back and do a location search. I'll go to the main page, search by location. Let's go Sydney again. So basically, if you just want to find out all the plants that are suitable for your location, you can go in this way. If you didn't have specific plants that you were wanting to look at, and this is where you can do some filtering. So if you just want to look at trees, I want to know trees that are suitable for park or street. And the specific heights, I want some decent size trees. So then that filters down to 135 results for species suitable under those conditions. You can see the other filtering options here. So soil type, native and exotic, and biodiversity. So the biodiversity indicators are the insects and pollinators and mammals. So there's a list, and then you can click on each one of those species again, and it takes you into the data sheet and gives you the information as well. So there's Aesynagundo, suitable. You can't kill Aesynagundo. And there's its distribution. So that's a good example of one that's got quite a wide distribution, especially see New South Wales and South. And what does it do over these scenarios? So it does actually change a bit over the time. Go back. And yeah, with the palettes that you've built, you can build as many as you want. I think there's up to sort of 100 different palettes you can build in there, so you can keep adding projects as you go along. What else is there? So happy to do some more species if anyone wants to nominate another species to search.
Turpentine.
Great.
Thanks, Gwilym.
No, doesn't come up that way. This way. Syncopia? No. Not coming up. What's the botanic name again? It's a mental blank.
It is Syncopia.
Syncopia glomulifera.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Yeah, it's not coming up. I know it's in there though. That is interesting. I do know it's there. I've looked at it before. Yeah. Give me another one. Sorry.
Spotted gum.
Yep. Okay. So look at that. Some species images we are still sourcing. Obviously that one doesn't have one, which is a surprise. But for Sydney, spotted gum is suitable, which is good to know. And that's quite a similar distribution there to Angoffa previously, but it interestingly it does move south from, it's suitable in 2030 up on the Queensland border, but as you go down it becomes a little less suitable. Any others? Ginkgo, yep. What's ginkgo gonna do? Good, I'm still learning all the unsuitable. That's for Sydney. What if we search somewhere like Tasmania? Suitable in Tasmania, that's not surprising, is it?
Yeah.
But yeah, what's going on with the distribution map there? So yeah, okay, so Sydney's too far on the coast, I suppose, for that. But you know, it's suitable in Blue Mountains in Sydney, New South Wales, I mean. But it does tighten up. You can see that it does.
Come unsuitable. Wow. As the temperature rises.
That'd be
That's
primarily due to heat. Yeah, I would say.
Yeah, that's very scary.
But that's a good example. Yeah. You know,
What about the pin oak?
Yep. Quercus palustris. And that's one of our experiment species. So that was one that was put in the greenhouse. So suitable. It's probably got a bit more of a, yeah, so it's in that category of tolerator and avoider. So it's good at doing both. It must have some good stomatal control, and you know, if it does get burnt, it will just drop leaves, but then come back. So what's its map doing? That one hasn't got the distribution map. So there's other maps that are included here, the occurrence mappings as well, and this has sort of helped with some of the mapping and suitability locations. So this is sort of the national databases to where these species exist, and this is based on a lot of the inventory information that we acquired as well. But that's good to know. So it's suitable in Sydney, you know, and similarly, okay, it's marginal in
Well, that's odd.
Tasmania. Well, it started, but it becomes suitable later. So that could be to do with some of the rainfall patterns associated with that. Yeah, there's some. It sort of does seem strange in some of the scenarios, but you look back at the data and you sort of go, okay, well, yeah, that's because rainfall's doing this and heat's doing this, and it's not just a straight line to measure against. So there are some funny ones like that.
Can someone give it? Cape Myrtle, yeah.
Cape Myrtle in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Yep. Suitable. Whoa.
Wow.
Interesting. Don't know if you're going to grow crepe myrtle in Ayers Rock, but
Can I ask, it seems that there's a fair bit of yellow there, so that's showing that it's unsuitable,
yeah, it's on the border.
which makes
yeah.
sense in the desert sort of areas. But
Yeah.
then, yeah, obviously, like you pointed out, it's a huge distribution
Mm,
still of the light green. So
yeah.
that very lime green, is that still suitable?
Yeah, on the scale here, so it's middle of the range. So dark green is obviously the most suitable. Lime means that it's sort of middle of the range. So yeah, that is interesting, being suitable up in Queensland. Yeah, that's a very interesting one. What about in, well, let's look in Brisbane. Suitable, yeah. Would you grow crepe myrtle in Brisbane at the moment?
Yep.
Doesn't the humidity give you mildew and stuff? But
It grows in Tasmania, so.
yeah.
No, it gets a bit of mildew every now and again, but no, we grow plenty of Lagostramerias here.
Okay, great.
Very healthy in Melbourne at the moment.
Yep. Well, that's one of those species that will do well then, unfortunately. No, I like crepe myrtle. There's just too many of them.
What about
Brachychaeton?
Yep. Where do you want to know?
Brisbane.
Unsuitable.
Suitable.
What's going on there? So it's East Coast New South Wales primarily. Yeah, that's interesting. It could be a heat thing. Would you be growing brachychiton up there at the moment? Is it?
Yeah, they grow, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I've got one in my backyard.
Yep. Okay. Well, that's interesting. I suppose its natural occurrence is more New South Wales and Illawarra, I suppose, isn't it? But yeah. No,
Although
it's
I've got it growing in the Hunter, and we get, January, a whole week or two of 40-degree days and no rain, and it's growing all right.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. That's one to look at. Yeah. If there are certain species that we're coming across that sort of do stand out like that, and we sort of go, oh, well, that's a bit strange, we are adding them to so I'll add that to our list to look into deeper, because we can go back into the climate data and actually see what the reason for that is. So I'll add that to our list. That's an interesting one. Okay, this is good. Is there anyone else want another species? Is it-
Forest pansy, circus.
Forest
Oh, yeah.
pansy. Yeah.
Yeah. What's that gonna do? That's not good in heat, is it? Whereabouts?
Melbourne.
Suitable.
Okay, that's good.
Oh, quite a big distribution. Yeah.
How's it in Canberra?
Well,
Yeah.
Canberra's, yeah, it looks like it's suitable in Canberra. I can type in Canberra specifically and find out.
I want one.
Yeah, they're quite nice, aren't they? Yep, suitable. Yeah, I've grown one of them in Sydney before and it didn't do very well, but
So can you look at a particular location and will it generate a list of all species that are suitable for that location?
correct. Yeah. So yeah, if you type in Canberra,
Yep.
it will produce. So I'll unfilter and show you. You can just do clear filter. That's the slow way. So there are 686 species that are suitable for Canberra, and then yeah, as you start to filter, it will reduce that number down a bit. Yeah, and then you can you can export that full list, and it's arranged alphabetically and also climate suitability. So it shows you only the green ones up front, but as you start going towards some of the back pages, it will be showing you other ones that are sort of becoming more marginal as you go along. Not many yet. Yeah, you see a few. So it puts the less suitable ones towards the back of the search. So we're in Canberra still. Yeah. So nicer will become a bit unsuitable. So will acacia meloxidin. There's that gonus again. So interesting to see the ones that won't be doing well sometimes. Scarlet oak, not suitable. Yeah, so there's two ways of searching. If you've got a specific species you want to know about, then you can do a species search, but otherwise you do a broad location search and you can look at everything available.
Does it have grass species as well, or just trees?
Do you mean turf or
No.
grass? Yeah.
Native grasses.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a whole range of stuff in there. Yeah, you got poa. Yes, yeah, it's not just trees. Yeah, I've still been focusing just on trees, but that's my bias. It's the whole range. Yeah, it has shrubs, grasses, everything.
And is this available to the general public?
So yeah, it is available. It is actually a subscription model at the moment, so there is a cost to sign up. You can access the site for free, and you can do searches and you can look at bulk of the information. The climate data is currently it's only available through subscription. The current sort of model we've gone with is that we want this to be a self-sustaining model. The reason we're charging for that is to help continue to improve it. We want to be updating these species. We want to be including more species. We want to be integrating with some other tools. We want to look at those co-benefits a bit more. We want to add functionality. So yeah, there's a reason that we've gone with the funded model. So
What sort of cost are we talking?
so here's the information on it. So it's $1,200 annual subscription. So it's aimed at sort of organisations and councils. There we go. Subscription is $1,200 per annum. At the moment, it's sort of very geared at organisations. We understand that might not be suitable for some individuals, but we're potentially looking at doing a few different models later on. But at the moment, you've just got the one fee.
So Gwyn, could an organisation that had 10 employees, would they all get access to it, or?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, for that cost, yeah.
So what about an organisation like the Horticultural Media Association?
we can
It's got
talk.
200 employees.
Yeah, I know that's a tricky one. Yeah, we haven't yet developed a way of doing a subscription for that sort of scenario. Happy to talk about that offline. We can figure out some sort of arrangement. It's a very tricky thing to manage. Basically, you know, you've got to be Adobe to be able to manage multiple users and that sort of thing. You know, it's very hard to have multiple access subscription models, but it's not impossible. Yeah.
Yeah, someone's also asking Willem about a local council, for example.
Yeah, we've actually had a bit of feedback that could be an option if councils subscribe and make it available for residents. Yeah, that would be a decent way of going down.
What about state government? Would you be charging each organisation, each department, or could those who are, for instance, doing adaptation action plans, so 7 different departments, would they be able to be subscribers as one subscriber?
Yeah, at the moment it's just the one subscriber model. State government, yeah, potentially have the funds to subscribe, so we'd be interested to make sure they sign up. We are looking at a few different options as well in terms of what happens in the future. We do want it to be available to as many people as possible because it's such good information. So yeah, there could be some development in the future on the subscription model, but yeah.
So would you suggest, for example, Jess is asking about the local government, so you'd suggest that people contact you directly to just ask about the possibilities of their joining and what it would mean?
Sure. Yep.
Yeah.
Or get the council, get right to your council and get them to contact us. Yeah. However, yeah. So you can contact us. There's information here on the website on how to contact us. Send us an inquiry. Yep.
And Willem, have you actually contacted local governments around Australia about this? Because obviously they're possibly the most important users.
They're some of the key users. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we're doing webinars with the local government networks. So I've got one coming up with LG New South Wales, and we'll be doing a few other webinars with other state local government agencies. Yeah, this is what they should be using. They should be, if they're planting trees, they should be checking them. Or planting open space, should be checking them in the tool. Yeah.
Great. Now you wanted to show us a video as well, I think.
Happy to. Yeah. It's the animation that we did. Happy to show that. So it's only a minute, so I'll play that now. Can you hear the audio on that?
No.
That's an issue. If there's no audio, then it probably won't mean much. It's on the website, so if you go to Which Plant Where, that's on the front page. Have a look. It's just a cute way of displaying what I've told you today, really. So have a look if you want to find out more. Yeah, and go and check out our resources. There really are some great resources on there. Different articles.
So I guess we've already had quite a few questions, but I guess we've got some time now for more questions from people. Yep. I guess I could start by saying, what was the most surprising? Can you tell us one of the most surprising trees?
Still learning, still going through it, but one of the ones that I was quite interested in was the Buckinghamia ivory curlflower. When it was interesting, I thought it would do quite well in Sydney with the new, increased rainfall, increased heat. Thinking that would be a good example, but it comes up unsuitable. It very much stays up in Queensland as a good species, up there. But so some other interesting ones. One of our most common species used in Sydney is the Lophostomen, which I'm pretty sure came up as Suitable. So that was, you know, some of these key species that, you know, we've got, you know, a huge representation of in our streets and parks. You know, really interesting to see how they're going to perform, and yeah, they're generally doing pretty good. Brush box is going to survive. So plane tree is an interesting one. Yeah, the plane tree is going to endure. You can't kill it. Its distribution stays you know, fairly good for Sydney and Melbourne. It's been interesting to sort of actually do these webinars and see what people are interested in. It depends on, you know, what you commonly use and what your species is, you know, that you're interested in. So yeah.
Now we've got any other questions? Yeah.
Ornamental pear is one used a lot.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah. Where do you want to know about it for?
Melbourne.
Melbourne.
So it becomes marginal in 2030, but then suitable onwards.
Because it's so widely used in Melbourne at the moment. I mean, it's a hugely important street tree.
It is throughout a lot of urban areas, isn't it? It's becoming the go-to. And the same for Sydney, interestingly. Yeah. Okay, but suitable there. Yeah.
About cycads.
Yep. Big distribution down the East Coast, yep. Any others?
Oh, Gwilym, just a quick question on some of the graphs that you showed earlier regarding the projected rainfall and heat.
Yep.
There was a reference to the RCP 8.5 projection.
Yep.
What does that stand for?
Good one. You put me on the spot there. I don't know.
And another webinar that you can go to, and that is explained in that.
Yeah.
We did that a couple of months ago.
Right.
But it basically refers to a projected scenario where the temperature rises 8.5 degrees.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
There's different
And
levels.
if
Yeah.
we keep going as we are, we're heading that way.
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other
Maybe,
questions?
maybe water gum?
Water gum.
Oh yeah. So that was an experiment species for where?
Oh, Sydney.
Sydney. Yep. Yep.
Great. Thank you.
Not gonna be able to kill that one.
Jess wants to know if there's going to be more ongoing research, and I guess you've said there will be if you can sell enough of the.
Yeah, definitely. And climate research is always changing. So these projections get released every few or updated every few years. So yeah, we want to be making sure that we're giving you the latest climate research data. No, we really aim to make, we don't want this to become a static snapshot in time. For it to be useful, it needs to be constantly updated. So if you're using it and you come across some species that aren't on there, please let us know, and the ones we aim to add down the track.
And are you going to keep on doing the trials, those torture trials that you're doing to the
torture trials? Yeah, I should stop calling them that. Yeah, well, that if there's a new round of species that we're that we're going to trial, yes, that could be definitely part of it. The greenhouses are still there. They were custom built, especially for this project, but they'll be continue to be used for other things. So, yeah, that's the expectation. Yep.
Yeah.
What about trees like macadamias and big orchard, like in the Northern Rivers and Southeast Queensland?
So this, we can look at macadamia, but we've really focused on amenity trees, not production species. So there's there's no fruit trees in here. So, but macadamia is both, really, isn't it?
Down there, yeah.
Is that it? Macadamia and take the follow. Yeah. Cool. Yep. It's a good one.
So I noticed on the chat that Marion has put up that reference for the other climate change information, and also we did a very good webinar on some of the climate change issues for the HMAA, which is up on our website too for anyone to have a look at.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. Yeah, is that all? Is there any other questions? Or?
Yes, I think that looks like a couple of people have had to slip away. They've gone, but yes, it's
Oh, actually, I just had one more if you can hear me. I think you're having trouble hearing. Oh, great. Just with the, the findings, sometimes we see that they're suitable in 2030, 2050, 2070. Other times they're not suitable in 2030, but are later on. Other scenarios, they're suitable for the next, say, 30 years, but not up to 2070. What's your sort of recommendation when we come across those findings that, isn't suitable all the time throughout that whole sort of 50-year period? Is it sensible then to look at things like microclimates and how do these specific species do in maybe more of a sheltered environment or site?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, well, the data there's been assumptions made in terms of, like I said before, with irrigation and watering and care and maintenance. Yeah, there's obviously going to be an exception if you're applying a whole different level of care to these things, and protecting it from hot western suns and wind direction, and there's going to be many ways you could adapt yourself or the situation to these species. But yeah, with the changes in going from marginal to suitable, and it is interesting. I'm sort of looking into a few of those and finding out what the reasons are, and it's with those graphs I showed you. It's in the Sydney example where rain will decrease in 2030 but then increase in 2050 and 2070. So it's those sort of situations where it's where it will go from marginal back to suitable based on changes in rainfall is the sort of the connection that I can make there. But if you see some that you come across that don't make sense, then I'm happy to look into it in more detail and get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And I noticed Marion's just said temperature rises are locked in for the next 20 years due to emissions to date. So I guess just the scenarios of up to 2050 are pretty well locked in.
Heat is on those charts I showed you in the presentation that it's a steady projection up, but it's the rainfall that changes. So generally, if there's a change in suitability, it's to do with rainfall. Heat's assumed to be just going up.
And I guess you've got the longevity, the natural longevity of some of these species. I mean, if a tree's only going to live for 20 to 30 years, then what's going to happen to it in 2070s? Not going to be quite as relevant.
Good point. Yeah, if it's a short-lived wattle or something. True.
Well, I think everyone seems to have gone quiet on the questions. It has been a fabulous webinar, and I really appreciate, and I'm sure we all do, you giving up your time and also the wonderful work that you've done to get this far. I think it's commendable.
It's a great project. Yeah, very glad
really
to be involved.
Thanks, William. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah, appreciate all your good questions. And
thanks so much.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
That's great. Thank you.
I see if you went to North somewhere.